Hello, welcome to GTech Techno Solution Private Limited. Today we are going to see about C programming. Let us see a basic program of factorial. We have to write a program to find the factorial of a given number. For this, we are using the procedure of recursion. A function is called recursive if a statement within the body of the function calls the function itself. It is also called as circular definition. Recursion, thus, is a process of defining something in terms of itself. If you see over here, we have a function known as fact, and we are calling the function itself with a different parameter n-1. So this technique is known as recursion. Let us see how to write a program for finding the factorial of a number. We'll be including the standard library as our first step. And next we are declaring a new method, fact, which we'll be defining later. And we are having our main function over here, which runs first on execution. Declaring the necessary variables, we have to get the value for which we have to find the factorial. For that, we are entering a question, that is, enter the value, and we have to scan the entered value. Saving the result of the factorial, that is the function, in a term I, will be displaying the value, that is the factorial of the entered number. Let us see what the function does. The function is fact, and it has the implicit parameter, the explicit parameter as n. Here, if the value of n is 0, then it terminates the condition. That is, your value will be over. So finding a factorial is nothing but, if you say the factorial of 5 is nothing but 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. So for doing that, we are decrementing 5 in each and every step. If the value of n, that is the value to which you have to find the factorial, is less than or equal to 0, then we have to return 1. Else, we are going to use the function factorial itself and multiply the numbers by decrementing 1 by 1. Say 5, and then we are multiplying it by 5 minus 1, and the factorial function will be recursive, generating the next set of numbers as 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. Thus, the factorial of 5 will be printed as 120. So this is how the program works. Pretty interesting, right? Let us move on to our next interesting program. This is not only interesting, but it is a simple and easy to understand, and it is preferred in Wipro and HCL Tech HR questions. If you see, we have to find whether the given number is odd or even. So how to find this? As usual, we have to include the standard libraries for our input-output function, and we have to write the main function which will be executed first. So here, we are declaring a variable a, and we have to get the number for which we have to find whether it is an even or odd number. So that is done through your print statement and scan statement. Getting the value for which you have to run the program for. Our next logic is, to a number be an odd or even, we have to check whether the number is divisible by 2. If a number is divisible by 2, then definitely it is an even number and all other numbers will be odd number. So simply, if we divide the number which we have scanned by 2 and if it gives the remainder to be 0, then the number will be an even number. Because it is divisible by 2, hence the number is even number. And all other numbers which are not divisible by 2 will be odd number. That is found using your if-else statement, with your condition to be a modulus 2 to be 0. So that is the logic of the program, and it is pretty simple, right? Let us see our next interesting program. We have to write a program to swap two numbers, and this is done using a temporary variable over here. So our logic behind writing down this program is that you have a temporary variable to which you are assigning your value of x. So the value of x is assigned to a temp, and you are assigning the value of y to the variable x. Further, the value which you have stored previously in your temp, that is the value of x, is now stored into y. So if you see, your x contains the value of your y and your y contains the value of your x at the end of the program. So this is how you can swap two numbers using a temporary variable. Let us take an example to make this logic pretty clear. If you see, we have the value of x to be 5 and y to be 8. Consider a temporary variable temp. So you have the value of x to be 5 and you are assigning that to temp. And you have the value of y to be 8. Assign it to 8. Assign it to x. And then you are assigning the value of temp to y. So now your x will have its value to be 8 and your y will have its value to be 5. If you see, our values are interchanged. That's cool, right? Let us do this using a program. Initially, we are including our standard libraries followed by a main function, for which we'll be having the main statements which we have to execute. So we have to get the numbers, that is the two numbers which we have to swap. For that we are writing a print statement followed by a scan statement, and we're getting two values. And further, we are printing the numbers before swapping so that we have a clear output of what the numbers are before swapping. And using the similar logic what we have explained before, we'll be taking the value of the first number to temp and the second value to be our a, and we'll assign the value stored in our temp to be b. So if you see, now our a will have the value of b and our b will have the value of a. As simple as that. Then we can simply display our value of a and b. That is done using a printf statement. Thus, we can display the swapped two numbers. Let us see our next interesting program. Well, we have done swapping two numbers using a temporary variable. How can we do this without using a temporary variable? It is not a big deal. Let us see how to do that. The logic behind swapping two numbers without using a temporary variable is that Our first step is, we have the variable x, to which we'll be summing both the values, say x and y, that is our two variables. We are adding it and we are storing it in x. Now x will have the sum of both the numbers. Next, we are finding the difference between the sum of both the numbers and subtracting y from it. So when we subtract y from the total sum of the numbers, we get the value of x. So the result of x minus y will be x itself, and we are storing this x in y. So y will have the value of x. At this moment, the value of y will be x. And next, the value of x in our step 2 will be the sum of both the numbers. So when we move on to our step 3, x will be nothing but the sum of both the numbers and y will be nothing but x. So when we subtract the value of y again from the total sum of two numbers, that is nothing but x again from the sum of total two numbers, we get the value of y. And we are assigning the value of y to the variable x. So now our values of y and x are interchanged. Let us explain this with an example so that you will be clear. If I am taking my value of x to be 7 and y to be 4, then our first step is that we have to add both the numbers and store it in x. So 7 plus 4 is nothing but 11, and I am storing it in my x. And further, in our step 2, we'll be subtracting the value of y from the total of two numbers, that is 11. From 11, if I am subtracting my value of y, that is 4, I have the value of x as the result, and I am storing my x in y. And further, at this point, the value of y will be my x, and the value of x is still the sum of both the numbers. In my third step, I am subtracting the value of y from the total, that is the sum of two numbers. So my current value at step 3 will be 7, that is nothing but the value of x. And when I am subtracting y from the total, I get the value of y as my result, that is 11 minus 7 will give me 4, which is nothing but the value of y. And I am assigning this to x. So as you can see, at the end of the logic, we have a value of y to be x and a value of x to be y. It is pretty simple, right? Applying the same logic in your program, we have to include the standard libraries as first, and then we have the main function which will be executed. We have to get the values, that is both the values, from the user. So for that, we are writing a print statement and a scan statement. To assure that the user has entered two values, we are printing the numbers before swapping them. And then comes our logic. That is A is nothing but the sum of both the numbers, and I am assigning the difference between the sum of both the numbers and the difference from B to be B. So that gives the value of A to be assigned to B. And further, the value of A will be nothing but sum minus the current value of B, that is nothing but A. So when I am subtracting A from the sum, I'll get B again. So that is assigned to your A. So at this point of time, my A and B will be swapped. So after this, we have to print our swapped values. That's it. This gives the swap two numbers. Let us see our next interesting program. These type of programs are highlighted in TCS and Infosys interview patterns. Let us see. This is going to be pretty simple. We have to write a program to find the string as a palindrome. A palindrome is nothing but a word that is read to be the same from front as well as back. If you see P-O-P, if I am reading it from reverse, P-O-P, this is the same. Similarly for madam, M-A-D-A-M. When I am reading it from reverse, M-A-D-A-M. It spells the same from the front and back. So that is known as a palindrome. So how to write a program to find whether a word is palindrome? If you see over here, we have to include the standard libraries as our initial step, followed by our main. So our main function has the declaration of the required terms, let us say a string to store a word, and an initiator I and length and a flag. We'll further see as we proceed further what are the use of these arguments. Initially we have to get the word in order to solve it. So we are getting the word using a printf statement and scanning the word and storing it in a string that is of the type character. Further, we are finding the length of the string and storing it in the term length. The length of the string is found using an inbuilt function string length. And next we are having a for loop which checks whether the string is same. This works as follows. If my I value is initiated to 0, then the condition is if string 1 of I, that is the string 1 of 0, is not equal to string 1 length minus I minus 1. If you see, the total length of the word is 5. So 5 minus our initial value of I will be 0, minus 1 is nothing but 4. So you know our array starts with 0. So this will be the fourth position. If it is not equal, we have to break, but it is equal. Hence, we are incrementing our for loops I further. This makes I to be 1. So our string I of 1 is nothing but A, which is nothing but string 1 of 1. And string length is 5 minus 1 of 1 is nothing but 5 minus 2, that gives you 3. So your third position 0, 1, 2 and 3 is nothing but A again, and these two are equal. So our A and A is equal according to the condition. Hence, since it is equal, we are further incrementing our for loop, and our final term is equal as well. So thus our flag is not set since it hasn't satisfied the condition. So our for loop terminates as it is, and it comes to the else part, that is your control comes to the else part. Hence we get the answer to be a palindrome, that is the text that we entered in string 1 is palindrome. So radar is a palindrome. Using a program, we have got the output. Let us see our next interesting program. We have to write a program to check whether the given number is a prime number or not. So, a prime number is nothing but a number which is a natural number and it has only 1 and itself to be the factors. So, if you take a few examples of prime numbers, say 2, 3 and 13, they are prime numbers because they are multiples of 1 and itself. That is, their multiples are nothing but 1 and 2. For 2, in the case of 2, only 1 and 2 are the multiples or the factors. So, let us check how a prime number can be checked with a program. Say, we are entering 7 and 7 is a prime number as we know. Let us check the program using our example. We have to include the standard libraries as we have seen, followed by your main function, which will be executed as first. Further, you have to declare the required variables. Here, n, I and c are declared and c is initialized to 0. We have to enter the number to be checked. Here, 7 has to be entered and an entered number is scanned using the scan statement. And the logic part comes over here. To see whether a number is prime number or not, we can easily check whether the factors are 1 and itself. So if you see over here, we have initiated a for loop with 1 and the condition is it should be less than or equal to n. And we are dividing the number, say 7, with each and every value of I which is less than 7. As we have stated over here, it should be less than or equal to 7. And the condition states that if the remainder is equal to 0, which means if any number between 1 and 7 divides 7, then your C value will be incremented. Since 7 is a prime number, your C value will be incremented only twice. That is, if you consider over here 7 modulus of 1 will be equal to 0 because 7 is divisible by 1. Hence your C value will be increment once. And for 2, 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, 7 is not perfectly divisible. Hence you will have reminders which is not equal to 0. And again, when your I value turns out to be 7, then that is your n value is already 7. So 7 modulo of 7 will be equal to 0 because 7 is perfectly divisible by 7. That makes your C value to be incremented. So finally, when your C value comes out of this for loop, if it is having its value to be 2, because 1 and itself, that is the condition for a number to be prime, then the number is a prime number. Else, if your C value has been incremented more than twice, that indicates that the number is not a prime number. These type of innovative questions are often hinted in mind tree and emphasis technical rounds. Let us see our next interesting program. We have to write a program to check whether a given number is a palindromic number or not. If a number which when read both forward and backward, if it is the same, then the number is called as a palindrome number. If you see over here, we have 121, 1, 2 and 1. When I read it from reverse, it is again the same 1, 2 and 1. So this is what we mean by palindrome. How to check this? Using a program. We have to include the standard libraries initially, followed by our main function. Then we are declaring the necessary arguments, followed by a statement to get the number from the user. Here we've got the number 121, so we are scanning 121 and storing it in n. The value of n is assigned to n1 so that we can check it further. Next comes the portion of logic. So initially we are checking whether the value of a number entered is greater than 0. And if it is greater than 0, then we have to take the units digit alone and separate each digits. So after separating each digits from each other, we have to reverse them. And after reversing them, if the numbers are equal, then the number will be a palindromic number. So to do that, we are dividing the number entered, say 121, with 10. So that gives a units digit number, that is, this step will give our answer as 1. And further, our step is reversing the number. So when we reverse the number and adding the remainder, we get the number reversed. Further, we are dividing the number by 10. So that gives you the value of 12.5. And here, since n is an integer value, you will get your answer as 12, so which is greater than 0, and the same step will be repeated until the value of n is greater than 0. So finally, you will get the reverse number of 121, and that is stored in your reverse term. So that is what we have been doing in the second step of a while loop. So now we are comparing our initial number, that what we have stored, and the reverse number. If these two are equal, then the given number will be a palindromic number. Else, if the both numbers are different, then the number is not a palindromic number. So this is the simple logic behind finding whether a number is a palindrome or not. Let us see our next interesting program. We have to write a program to generate a Fibonacci series. A Fibonacci series is nothing but in which we'll have, say, fn terms, and your fn will be the nth term, and our initial terms will be f of 0 will be equal to 0, followed by f of 1 will be 1, and these are standard. So to find our next value, say f of 2, we have to add the previous two terms, that is 0 and 1. That can be done by, if our next term is f of n, then we have to add f of n minus 1 and f of n minus 2 to obtain our f of n. So this will be the formula to find the next term. And this formula can be applied for every values of n which are greater than or equal to 2. So simply to say, a Fibonacci series is nothing but over here. If you see, my first two values are standard as 0 and 1, and the third value is nothing but sum of the previous two values, that is 1 plus 0 is 1, and our next value is the sum of previous two values, that is 1 plus 1, 2, 2 plus 1, 3, 3 plus 2, 5, 5 plus 3, 8, 8 plus 5 gives you 13, 13 plus 8 gives you 21, 21 plus 13 gives you 34. So this is known as your Fibonacci series. So how to find the Fibonacci series using a program? First, we have to include our standard libraries, followed by our main function. Then we are initializing a Fibonacci with a length of 25 as a type of int, and initialize the first and the second element to be 0 and 1. And for every number which is having its value of n to be greater than 2, that is initializing with 2, and less than 10 in this case, to make things simple, we are writing a for loop, and for each values of I which is greater than or equal to 2, we are going to apply the formula as the Fibonacci's value of ith term is nothing but the sum of the terms before it, that is I minus 1 and I minus 2. So that will be stored in the Fibonacci's array which is of type int. And then we are printing the values stored in fib array using a for loop. So as simple as that, you can generate a Fibonacci series. Let us see how to compare two strings using a program without using a string compare function. So without using a string compare function, we have to compare two strings lexicographically, then it can be done using string compare function. When two strings are equal, then it returns 0. If two strings are unequal, then it returns the difference between the ASCII values of the characters that are entered. If the string 1 is greater than string 2, then the value returned will be a positive value. If the string 1 is less than string 2, then the value returned will be a negative value. A string compare has the syntax as follows: int string compare, within the brackets you have to pass the two character type strings. So this is how we have to write a string comparing program. Include your standard library functions followed by the main function over here, and we are having a function of string compare to which I'll be passing two strings. That is, in this case I have two strings stored in array 1 and array 2. Passing those array 1 and array 2 in my compare string function cmpstr, we are going to find which of the string is bigger using this if loop, and the bigger one is stored in the term bigger. The loop is performed for the bigger function, and we are checking whether two strings are equal. If the two strings are equal, then we don't have any return value. Else, if the two strings are different, then we'll have the return value to be the ASCII difference. So here in this case, for these two strings, a return value will be -32, which is the difference between the ASCII numbers of these two strings. Let us see a program to find the length of the string. To find the length of a string without using a string length function, it is pretty simple. Include your standard library function, and then we have to write a main portion in which we have to get the string, which we have to find the length for. Using a scanf, scan the string. And here we are having an array of type character and the length is 1000. And we are executing a for loop over here to find how many times your I can be incremented until the value of your array at the position of I is not equal to null character. So at the end of the string you will have a null character by default. So G tick. At the end of the string you will have a null character. So at this position, that is 0, 1, 2 and 3, followed by your fourth position will have a null character. So till our fourth position, that is when your I turns to be 4, you will have a null character. At that point of time in a for loop, the value of I will be 4. So it exits the loop since the condition fails. And the control enters the printf statement. So when the control exits the for loop, the value of I will be 4, as I said. So we are printing the value of I at that point of time. That gives you the length of the string. That is, before your null character will be the length of your string as 4. It is pretty simple. These kind of questions are preferred in TCS Infosys technical rounds. Let us see our next interesting program. We have to find the reverse of a string without using the function string reverse. strrev. So here we have the program. Include your library functions followed by your main function. Then we have to get the string from the user. That is done using enter string and we are getting the string. Further, we are assigning the value of I to be 0 and j is already initialized to 0 over here. We are having an array called str and the length is 100. So using the array str, how are we going to find the reverse of the string? Let us see that. Initially, the value of j is taken to be the string length of str. Subtracting 1 from it, you get the last position. So your j will be pointing over here, and whereas your array's I will be pointing over here. And we are storing it in the temp, that is your ith position is stored in temp, followed by your jth position is assigned to your ith position, and your temp value, that is your n, is stored into jth position of your array. So that makes g to come over here and n to come over here. A simple swapping logic is applied over here. And further, we are incrementing your I, that is your I will be next pointing out to this position, that is you are incrementing your I, and your j is decremented, that is your j will move on to the previous position, that is to T, and your I will be in this position. So further, your while loop will be executing until your I is incremented and your j is decremented. So this swaps the letter, and finally when you print your str array, you will be getting the reverse of the string. Pretty simple, right? So this is the logic behind string reverse function. These kind of questions are highlighted in Wipro and HCL Technologies technical rounds.